everybody can see and hear me clearly now. So some technical glitch with the audio. Now it is resolved. This is the first slide. Let me quickly tell you, right? This is an article taken from the Hindu. The topic of the article is climate change, right? And there will be 2-3 questions at the end. Important thing is to first read it and then we will go about it. We will understand how it is like. So this is the first slide. Some amount of time has been spent, has been wasted on the technical glitch. I hope all of you would be able to make up for it. Let's try to make up for it in the sense that this is the first slide. Let's read it quickly and then we can discuss. Right. So I hope everybody can see it. What is the first slide? What is this topic about? If you look at it, the topic is uh, the 26th United UN's Climate Change Conference of the Parties in Glasgow. It is going to start on the 31st of October. Right. So this is this is about the COP26. COP26 is nothing else but the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference, right, on the 31st of October, right. So, Priyanka, what is the meaning of didactic? Didactic basically means done with the purpose to teach, right, especially a moral lesson, right. Suppose if I give you an example, many religious books have a didactic purpose. Matlab, the purpose is to teach gyan, bhatna, right? Especially on something like morality. Okay, so the topic is this, and if you notice, right, uh, as usual, you will find most articles from the Hindu, you will find the author will be very objective, very balanced, right? So he begins by saying that, uh, it is to raise their emission reduction commitments from the NDC's nationally determined contributions, right? Some positives have been achieved, but many high emitter countries are woefully short. So this is the issue, right? So short of the emissions reductions required by 2020 to 30 to restrict the. So what is the aim? The global temperature to rise well below 2 degrees, or now the de facto. What is de facto? De facto basically means it is not written clearly by any rule or any principle, but people have started accepting it like a fact, right? So de facto goal meaning ये कहीं भी लिखा नहीं है 1.5 है, it is nowhere set in the principles or in the rules, but everybody follows it like a fact, right? Now, and important thing, the loudest buzz. What is buzz? Buzz is something which which catches people. And buzz is basically a sound, right? A noise that made by something like a bell. So the loudest buzz is of around net zero emissions by 2050. What is net zero emission? Net zero emission, he explains it like this: greenhouse gases emissions equaling absorption by forests, right? So रिडक्शन से फोकस शिफ्ट होके नाउ the problem क्या है, many high emitters are short of the emission reductions, right? And the new focus is on maintaining zero emissions. That means जितना emit करते हैं उतना absorb, मतलब contributing zero rather than reducing emissions, right? They are focusing now on this concept of zero emissions, net zero. I think everybody is clear. ओके विकी, स्यूडो फैक्ट देखो, सबसे पहले स्यूडो एंड फैक्ट दोनों को एक साथ यूज मतलब करना तो कर सकते हैं, बट स्यूडो बाय इटसेल्फ मीन्स समथिंग व्हिच इज फॉल्स, राइट? सो इफ इट इज फॉल्स इट कैन नॉट बी अ फैक्ट. You can say something that pretends to be a fact, बोल सकते हैं, but that is probably in a very creative way, we're using it. ठीक है, right? Everybody is understood. So I hope everybody understands straight away from the first paragraph, right? The stage is set. The background is there have been some positive outcomes, but when it comes to the nationally determined contributions, the problem is going to come from the high emitters. Okay, right. Everybody has read it, I hope so far. Let's move on to the next slide. So this is the next slide. Okay, sorry guys, sorry. Right, this is the next. एक minute guys, एक minute, sorry. Now, the author is pointing out what is the issue, right, in this, what is the major issue, the major problem he will point it out in this slide. So, everybody is clear with this. I hope everybody has read the first slide. Okay, right, second slide. So, first slide में ही the author was expressing his reservations, right? So, problem कहाँ से हो रहा है? The high emitting nations that produce high emissions, right? Instead of reducing their emissions, they are now focused on something called net zero. Net zero, as the name suggests, right, जितना produce करते हैं उतना absorb भी करेंगे. Right. Now, what does the author say about this? Okay, there's one more thing. Six assessment report AR6. This is using, he's using it, using the short form to make it easier, right? So the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it was released, the AR6, it was released on August 2021, right? What is this report? It comes with shock and awe, right? The revealing scientific data were glossed over. What is the meaning of glossing over? Glossing over basically means it was hidden, covered. ठीक है, so when you gloss over something, that means इस उसके ऊपर कुछ ढक देना so that people do not see it. ठीक है, so the scientific findings of AR6 has been hidden. क्या है? What is the scientific finding is very important here. Far from emphasizing net zero alone, so net zero से ज़्यादा AR16 is saying that we should keep temperature rise within 1.5. Global emissions should be reduced. So AR6 says net zero से ज़्यादा क्या है? 45% reduction होना चाहिए, right? By 2030 on the way to net zero 2050. So 2050 से पहले 2030 तक we should be reducing by 45%. So this is nothing else but the scientific fact which has been hidden, right? So next paragraph is what you can see. I hope everybody is reading it. Now, what is the meaning of this drum beat? This word drum beat actually, has a lot of uh, symbolic meaning here. What is a drum beat? Drum beat is basically used to announce something very loudly. So this net zero is very loudly propagated by the US, spurred on, matlab encourage, right? So it is encouraged by the US and the United Nations Secretary General, right? So all this which is common but differentiated responsibilities has been forgotten. So net zero के चक्कर में the real issue has been forgotten. ठीक है, right? Developed countries, they are responsible for 75% of the climate, atmospheric emissions that cause climate change, right? They should take most of the burden, right? While developing countries should do what they can, right? So this is basically, this is nothing else but what the responsibility is common but differentiated responsibilities. So the concept of net zero has replaced the other things, right? The other things which are probably developed, the things like CBDR have been put in the background. Okay, everybody has read it, I hope. Yes. Next, this is the next slide. right? Everybody's reading it, right? So he's telling you if the net zero, so he's telling you that different, if the net zero is emission is the target is 2050, all countries cannot reach there at the same year, right? Developed countries should reach there earlier, while developing countries can get there later on, right? So why? Because the developing countries contribute more, right? Now this paragraph is a very good indication of what the author wants to say. I hope everybody is reading it. Okay, nobody asked me the meaning of this proverbial silver bullet, so let me ask you, what is this proverbial silver bullet? So according to the author, net zero 2050 kya hai? It's a distracting message and it diverts attention away from the urgent target that the COP should focus on. So meaning we are focusing on something else, right? The net zero is also no proverbial silver bullet. Proverbial silver bullet kya hota hai? What is silver bullet? Anybody can tell me what is silver bullet? Silver bullet is used to kill a werewolf. ठीक है, werewolf को मारने का there's only one way, that is to kill a, you know, that is to use a silver bullet. So silver bullet, proverbial silver bullet means something which will solve this major problem. So the net zero is not a silver bullet. ठीक है, all clear? Everybody is reading it. No response from anybody. I hope everybody can see and hear me clearly, right? प्रियंका, proverbial मतलब proverb से लिया गया, right? The word proverbial is an adjective. So the proverbial silver bullet मतलब जो silver bullet proverb में use किया जाता है. कौन सा proverb? Silver bullet is used to kill a werewolf. ठीक है, so when you say proverbial, it means something that is very commonly known. Right. Next paragraph, you will find something very surprising. Right. Therefore, the target, the IPCC had called for a target of 45% less from 2010 levels, but instead of 45% less, it is 16.3% above. Right, the speed at which we are going right now, it should be 45% less from 2010 levels, but in actual it is 16.3% above. So it's a very alarming position. चाहिए -45% और अभी चल रहा है +16%. So deficit कितना है? 46 + 16, that is 61%. जो चाहिए उससे 61% ज्यादा चल रहा है, right? So this is a very alarming situation. ठीक है, everybody has read it. I hope everybody got the point. Next slide. Right. So in this paragraph, in this slide, if you have read it, what is he doing? He's telling you about the problems, right? The problems that stand in the way, the countries that stand in the way of emission cuts, right? So several large emitters have announced deeper cuts, right? For example, the UK and the European Union, right? They have done well. They have raised their targets to 68%, right, and 55% compared. So they have increased that target to cut uh, emissions, right? US, right, is basically the US is still lagging behind, right? And what it has promised what is net zero emissions by 2050 compared to what they had promised earlier, 80% reduction, right? So the Biden administration has also promised to reduce emissions, right? But according to the author, what the US has promised is insufficient, especially as the US is the second largest emitter, right? And the baseline which they have taken is considerably low compared to the UK and the UK and the European Union and the UK, right? Where they have taken the baseline to be 1990. So the author is not very satisfied with what the US is doing. It is not enough, right? And he's giving you data to prove it. Other problems kya hai? Other standing in the way are Russia, Brazil under Jair Bolsonaro, who's ravaging the Amazon forest, and China, the world's largest emitter, right? So China, the other problems are Russia, Brazil, and China. The major, US, Russia, Brazil, China are the ones who are standing in the way. The UK and the European Union are doing, they're actually playing the role, right? So everybody is clear, I think. Next. Abhi tak you will notice, right? The author has not spoken about the in contribution or the role of India. He will come towards it in the last two paragraphs. Let's also read this. Right. Now, he tells you, if you look at this paragraph, take a look at it for 30 seconds, then we will discuss. Okay, one more thing. This is not row, sorry, this is flow. It should be SS flows. Right. What is the whole issue? If you notice, right, he is telling you the situation, right? The whole paragraph, if you have read it, the whole paragraph is summarized, can be summarized like this. It is the situation is very serious, right? We can understand it more from the perspective of carbon budgets. What is a carbon budget? Carbon budget represents the total amount of emissions that the atmosphere can hold for a given global temperature, right? And it is assessed through cumulative emissions and not annual flow. Matlab, अच्छा देखो, emissions that have taken place, it will be there, it cannot be reduced, right? So if I say इस साल, annual flow is basically trying to calculate your emissions on a year to year basis. The author is saying cumulative करो because the effect is going to be cumulative, ठीक है, right? So the cumulative emission would likely use up 85% of the remaining carbon budget, right? In short, what it's telling you is measure the emissions not on a year-to-year basis. What about what has happened in the past? Because what has happened in the past, cumulative, the effect will be definitely cumulative, right? So people should use annual flows estimate based on carbon budgets, right? Carbon budgets basically is nothing else but how much of emission is a country, has it produced throughout, right? That is what it seems to be, right? Everybody is reading it, I hope. No response from anybody for quite some time, right? And in short, last line is very important, right? Reaching net zero is, it will help stabilize global temperature at a particular level. मतलब इससे प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व नहीं होगा, रुक थोड़ा बहुत स्लो डाउन हो जाएगा. But to solve the problem or to address the problem effectively, what do you require? Net zero से ज़्यादा क्या चाहिए? You require, limiting global temperature increase would imply lifting cumulative emissions to within a carbon budget. So he's saying net zero will stabilize global temperature. Stabilize मतलब जो राइज हो रहा है उतना फास्ट नहीं होगा, वो काफी नहीं है ना, राइज तो हो ही रहा है, राइट? व्हाट इज इंपॉर्टेंट इज इंस्टेड ऑफ दिस वी शुड लुक एट लिमिटिंग cumulative emissions, right? And that will help reduce the problem, that will help solve the problem. ठीक है, everybody is read it, I hope. right? So you have, if you notice, the author is speaking about the various, the problems right now. What is being done, is it enough, right? And what could be done to solve the problem? So that is what he's telling. Okay, everybody is ready, I hope. Yes. Now the last two slides will tell you about. Okay, 8 minutes, sorry guys, sorry. So in this last paragraph he is telling you about the whole, what do you call, विक्की क्वेश्चंस है बाद में, 1 मिनट रुक जाओ, लेट्स सी, राइट, लेट्स सी, क्वेश्चंस बाद में करेंगे, राइट, लेट्स सी. Right, everybody is ready, I hope. Like this slide, so he is summing up. What is he saying? Right, you should focus on reducing emissions rather than net zero is too distant and possibilities of. Okay, there is one idiom here: gaming the system. What do we mean by gaming the system? What do we mean by gaming the system? Gaming the system is playing with the system, using the rules to your own advantage to hide your mistakes, right? So, manipulating the system. So, that means net zero is something which can be misused to play with the system. Somebody might hide his or her own mistakes. ठीक है, controlling the system वही है basically, right? So, the author wants people to focus on something else, right, rather than reducing emission is what the author wants. And if it does not do, then the world where squandered basically means wasted. There are many idioms here if you notice, right? एक तो gaming the system है, right? Then there is this word iteratively. Iteratively means, you know, to iterate means to speak out, to address, to communicate, right? So he's telling you the problem is very clearly, I mean, the problem is very clearly open. What needs to be done is clear, but what will actually happen, right? So the pressure will come from Africa and the least developed countries, but will that tilt the scales? Will that be enough to uh, tilt the scale? Basically means to change the balance, to change the situation, right? The powerful status quo is what is happening now. So what is happening now is very powerful, but will the questions that come from the smaller and the least developed countries, will it be enough to change the current system, right? So uh, this is also a suggestion, but then who will hold their feet to the fire? Holding their feet to the fire का मतलब क्या हुआ? Holding their feet to the fire is an idiom. I'll give you an example, right? I'll tell you the origin, उससे समझ में आ जाएगा. पुराने पुराने जमाने में एक punishment था, right? That is, you put your feet close to a fire and देखते हैं कि कब तक बर्दाश्त करना. So in a way, holding their feet to the fire means who will take responsibility. Difficult job है, कौन करेगा? ठीक है, right? So this is what he is, wondering. Or will the US and the other succeed in focusing on the false net zero solution and escape their obligations, right? So dangerously kicking the can down the road. This is also an idiom. Kick the can down the road matlab जो प्रॉब्लम है उसको rather than dealing with it right now, you keep on delaying it. That is called kicking the can down the road. So I think everybody has read it so far. Right, now next two slides I will quickly skip, right, because the next two slides are about something different. It's about India. In any case, the whole article you can read it if you want. It is on, is today's the Hindu article. Anyway, right, it's from the editorial page of the the Hindu newspaper today, right? So everybody has read it. I hope all of you have more or less summarized, right? So let's attempt the questions also. The last two slides I have eliminated, right, because it is about, we have more or less understood what is the author's aim. So let's try to answer this question. Which of the following best sums up the author's opinion on effort to achieve net zero? What is net zero? We have been discussing about it. Right, pick your best answer. Okay, so Vicky and Siddharth, Abhilash, right, everybody saying answer is A. But be very careful, it is more of false bravado than reality. एक बार बताओ, net zero achieve, opinion efforts to achieve net zero, right? So is there a better option? Everybody is saying answer is one, but what is wrong with B? It may not be enough to counter the problem. What about B? In fact, better answer is B, right? Dekho, it places a disproportionate burden on developing countries. This is something which we, okay, एक जगह it is mentioned that developed countries should play more role and developing countries will contribute, but this does not mean that net zero places disproportionate burden on developing countries. This we are not sure about. Will it be a step in the right direction? No. देखो, better answer one से two है, right? False bravado क्या है? Right, false bravado is basically, exaggerated show of courage. Is it show of courage? Is net zero a show of courage, or is it something which is not going to be enough? One जो है ये जानबूझ के it has been put there to confuse you, right? According to the author, right, I'll show you the slides. In fact, slides, there's no need to go back. I will discuss it with you. What does he say about net zero? Net zero say, does it not say it is not a silver bullet? Does it not say, for example, here, look at this. Right. Look at this. Net zero is at best a distracting message. Right. Look at this. It is at best a distracting message, and at worst deliberately diverts away from the urgent target. Then, so is it false courage? No. At best it distracts, and at worst it diverts attention. Matlab, it is something which hides the problem, right? And by the way, the net zero is also no proverbial silver bullet. Matlab, it is not going to solve the problem according to the author, right? So what is the best answer? Best answer is, it is something which is not going to solve the problem. In short, if you notice, right, एक चीज और भी है, right? What is it? The idea is that, this, if you go by net zero, right, he tells you that net zero will help, it will help stabilize the increase. Climate change तो हो ही रहा है, it will help stabilize, मतलब rate of change will be impacted, right? खराब होने का जो rate है, it will be controlled, but खराब तो होगा, right? So otherwise what does the author suggest? He suggests something else, right? That will be the question that we ask. ठीक है? Right. So Abhilash, yes, Vicky, what are you saying? It is something which is not achievable. Then how can we say that it will not be enough unless it will be accomplished? देखो, net zero, Vicky, your argument is not correct. नेट जीरो इज नॉट अचीवेबल नहीं है, ही इज नॉट सेइंग नेट जीरो इज नॉट अचीवेबल. नेट जीरो अचीव अगर कर भी ले तो इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू सॉल्व द प्रॉब्लम, right? It is not going to solve the problem. It is not a silver bullet, right? So it is not a silver bullet, matlab it is not going to solve it. And remember, there was a part of the passage where he says that net zero, what will it do? Net zero will stabilize the increase, right? What you require is, I'll just give you, this point. I didn't want to, go back anyway. I'll show you, right? There is this line. Look at this line, right? There is this line here. Reaching net zero is necessary to stabilize global temperature rise. So net zero हमने achieve कर भी लिया तो क्या होगा? Temperature rise will be stabilized, but stop नहीं होगा, right? But limiting global temperature increase to a specific level will imply lifting cumulative emissions. So everybody is clear, right? It is about lowering. It is not about keeping the what they call the emissions, the keeping the aggregate, right? So net zero will and एक चीज और भी, remember kicking the can down the road का मतलब क्या हुआ? Kicking the, if you notice, false net zero solution, right? And dangerously kicking the can down the road मतलब it will keep on delaying the problem. Everybody understood, I hope? ठीक है, right? Now इसके बाद एक question और है. This will be the last question for today. Which of the following is the best approach to counter the problem? The problem of global warming, the problem of uh, the problem of global warming, the problem caused by emissions, right? What is the best answer? Choose the best answer. Right, choose the best and eliminate. Okay, Vicky is the first to respond. What about the others? Okay, अच्छा, Vaishnavi A and B. अच्छा, एक minute. Many are saying two also. The best answer is 3. What is the best response? What is the requirement? Requirement जो है वो लास्ट में बताता भी है. Remember, best answer is C. देखो, find the better alternative to the concept of net zero. Alternative already है. What is it? The alternative is to reduce the emissions, right? So this is something which is not enough. The alternative is already there, reduce, right? And there's also a target, right? Now problem with 2, augment means supplement. नेट जीरो गोल्स विद कार्बन बजट्स. देखो, नेट जीरो तो सबसे पहले द ऑथर सेज इट इज अ फॉल्स, it's a false what they call solution. It will not solve the problem, right? So augmenting does not come with that sense, right? So augmenting net zero would mean net zero को supplement करो. net zero तो करना है ही नहीं, right? ठीक है, so the best answer is 3. So to focus on drastically reduced emissions. इसका आंसर जो है, you will find it very clearly here. Right, so the answer is, देखो, right, the goal is to achieve 45% emission cuts is the situation, right? So reducing emissions, the COP must focus sharply on reducing emissions rather than net zero. Solution already है, reduce emission is the solution. ठीक है, everybody got the point, I think, right? Now भाविक is drastic reduction possible है, तभी तो लिखा हुआ है. Look at this, must focus sharply on reducing emissions, right, which is too distant, and if achieving the 45% cut, 45% emission cut drastic नहीं है, right? So do not just eliminate it, Bhavik and everybody else, do not just eliminate it because of the word drastic. What is required is 45% cut. 45% is drastic. I mean, देखा जाए तो nearly 50% cut करना, right? So this is the best way to answer the question. ठीक है, solution is this, right? अब is it possible or not, वो तो करके ही पता चलेगा. ठीक है, all clear everybody, right? ठीक है, so with that we come to the end of the question, right? And by the way, the only problem is making such questions, it takes a lot of time, so I cannot make. And एक चीज और भी है, एक पैसेज में ऐसे 5 क्वेश्चंस बनाना, it will take at least around, it takes a lot of time, right? Anyway, so and problem is this is today's paper, right? So had I अगर मैं पहले का लेके बनाऊं, I can do it easily, but making it today, making it ready today itself and making questions, it's a little bit difficult. Anyway, so we will try to do it as far as possible, right? So जितना हो सकता है we will do it, no issues, right? But the number of questions will be limited. 2 3 4 से ज़्यादा थोड़ा सा मुश्किल है. Anyway, so with that we come to the end of the session. I hope everybody understood. And before we leave, these are this is the schedule of the entire week. All of you know about it already, right? And you can take a screenshot, right? In any case, okay. So these are the courses which are still available. You can think of taking up to 2022, right? And if you are looking at other exams, there's also a course, there's also this classroom program, right? And these are the teachers who will be taking your classes. And with that we come to the end of the session. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel, right? So okay, sorry Vicky, tomorrow is an off. Sorry everybody, tomorrow Tuesday we do not have this classes, so I'll meet you again on Wednesday. ठीक है, right? Okay. महिमा पैराजम्बल्स देखते हैं, राइट? एक दो मैं करता हूँ, आई विल ट्राई टू राइट, बट as I was telling you, एडिटोरियल्स में फोकस शुड बी ऑन एडिटोरियल्स. एनीवे, राइट, लेट्स सी जितना होता है, लेट्स सी. ठीक है, राइट.